All right. It's always like a low stakes kitty hawk whenever I go live now because I'm like, all right, pretty sure I can walk away from this computer. Pretty sure I can remote in and do everything from the other side of the room. Pretty sure I can switch into the kind of talent who's spinning plates in the background mode. And then, of course, you know, instantly, usually there's an explosion on the launch pad. By the way, we are live. And so, as always, we're live on the Mono Rogue channel on YouTube and twitch.tv/9attack. And we'll see who is first to join us in the chat. Oh, and I guess I'll plug this in.
Hello, people of the internet.
Well, hello, friends.
Holy cow. It's Dylan again. Dylan, what? How many in a row are you up to? I think that's 3. There we go. Hello, Seth. And let me... Okay, we'll see if this breaks anything when I remote desktop in. Sometimes that happens. But so far everything seems fine, right? You guys are there? Or did I lose your audio? Okay, the audio did flip over. Okay, 1 second. Let me see if I can fix this. Yeah. Classic. And you guys aren't back, right? You're still muted?
I'm here.
Oh,
We're here.
Interesting. Okay, I think I see what broke. Okay, just so I say it out loud, when I remote desktop in, what happens is it changes the desktop size, which upsets vMix's ability to do the desktop capture that you guys are on. And so then you guys froze. And it also wants to conveniently send me audio to the laptop, which is not helpful. We dusted up against this last week, and now it is a familiar problem. So I am going to see if I can tweak this and reset it remotely. So this would be, there we go. So let me hear you, Andrew.
Hello, I'm Andrew Mayne, and I'm talking to my buddy Brian.
Beautiful. And then that means let's see.
Uh-oh. Gonna be right back, boys.
So this guy, I want to, we got layers, general, desktop capture. I guess I'll have to say change. We'll do local desktop capture, and I get to play the Guessing game of which display is which I think I got it. Are you able to move, Andrew? Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. You know what? Well, we're waiting on Justin. Wow, here's some real Icarus business. I'm going to go to advanced shots. I'm going to add this shortcut to take me to the complicated quad shot. Oh, no, wait. That's the same quad shot that I modified. So it's not that complicated. Oh, doggone it. I was all set for something very complicated. Turns out it's easy. Okay. Then here, I guess I'll just run to the restroom and then we'll jump in with the Weird Things podcast.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Dan Hoke wanted me to test audio. There you go. Just a normal thing, one might say. Cons don't fool us because we're stupid. They fool us because we're weird. This is the Weird Things podcast. Oh, wait. Okay. When I said podcast, it dripped off at the end, didn't it? I think it did. So I'm going to tweak the gating. All right, we're getting close to the part where I'm going to put a proper mic over in this spot. But for right now, could you guys in the chat let me know if, by any chance, this mic is blowing out at all? Hey, Look at that. I got there. Now I could do prompter. Nope, that's command prompt. Okay, so you guys say audio is clean. That's great. All right, well then I'll not worry about it. Oh, that's great. And I could get all the way back here and it's not ducking on me. Oh, you guys are definitely hearing all that business though, right? Although if you weren't hearing it, you wouldn't know what business I'm talking about. Okay, here, I'm going to kill the other music and then we should be good to go, Andrew.
Yay. I hear a cow in my backyard. You checking your bathroom microphone?
No, I'm trying to turn on the prompter so that I can see the chat in the prompter. It's a highly technical thing.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
All right. All right, here you go. If you want, I'll just count you in and click record from here. No? All right.
Quite the operation we got going on here. Justin's got the baby in the arm. Brian's like got his toes on a record button.
All right, no, I'm going to do it the way I designed it. You're right.
Meat, bread, Flintstone.
Okay. Then let me just turn down. I think my mic is a little bit hotter. No, I guess that sounds all right. Check. Yeah, we're all the same. Okay, ready? In 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Mayne, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello.
Mr. Justin Robert Young.
Hello.
With his protege in his arms.
Exactly. Hi. Say hi.
Finally, we got some real smarts on the program. Joining us for the first time, little Bella.
So I created a little thing using N8N, which is my favorite workflow automation tool at the moment, where basically what I do is I have it collect all sorts of stories throughout the week, and then right before our show, send me an email with a list of stories. And let's see, this is pretty cool. This is actually from 2 days ago. Researchers create the world's smallest shooting video game using nanoscale technology. A research team demonstrated the world's smallest shooting game, a unique nanoscale game inspired by classic arcade games. This achievement was made possible by real-time control of the force fields between nanoparticles using focused electron beams. So it has practical applications for the manipulation of nanoscale objects that could revolutionize biomedical engineering and nanotechnology, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to justify it, guys. You had it at arcade game. That was... So this is pretty cool. So basically what they were doing is basically showing how they were able to like manipulate things at a nanoscale and to get them to do kind of really cool stuff, which, we don't hear as much as lately about like nanotech and other things. And it's not because there's not a lot of things going on in that space. It's often that, we have a short attention span when it comes to headlines. And I'm looking at a article from phys.org where they actually show, this is really cool. They have like a fighter and nano bullets, etc. Brian, I'm going to send this to you if you want to hear the link to this and be there momentarily to your Schwood account.
Okie dokie.
And there you go. And one of the problems was with nanotech. I was like super into this when I was like young. Like, nanotech's gonna be great. I kept thinking there's any minute we're gonna solve this nanotech thing and we're gonna have molecular machines and everything around us. And then it turned out that it took nature billions of years to kind of like figure out how to make relatively stable systems that could self-replicate, et cetera. Not to say that we won't be able to do that too, but there are all sorts of little variabilities that come into at nanoscales, and it's been a lot trickier than we were hoping for.
All right, so here we go. I got the email is okay.
Well, at least Belle is talking to me, so that's something.
I'm with
Yeah.
you. Sorry, I remember we
Just
talked
put
about
Belle
how
on the
every week is a
microphone,
kitty
so-
hawk.
So anyhow, Andrew, what do you think? Well, I think it's interesting. I think we're going to see a lot more development in this space because I think it's pretty exciting to see where we can go. We have a lot more capabilities now with image recognition models, AI systems, ML. You start applying those things to electron microscopes, and the idea that you could start running a bunch of experiments at scale. Very, very cool. And I think that I don't know how much we've been using machine learning to control electron microscopes and run these experiments. But if it's going to take, running thousands of them to start figuring out, how to move objects around, I'm excited. That's
Well-
a great point.
So now so we do have video of it. Is this a good example to look at?
Yeah, I guess so. I never watched the videos.
Oh, okay. Well, meanwhile, that's all I want to see. I heard video game and I'm like, let me see it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're looking at somebody with a controller, a full size like controller, moving an electron microscope around with some object that's like shooting like force field at actual objects.
That's freaking
It's
amazing.
like inner space. And I love the sound
That's
in the
amazing.
laboratory right now. They're shooting nano bullets.
That's
Incredible.
really incredible. It reminds me of like I don't know, like you would get like a hockey game where you'd have little tiny hockey men and play, where it's like you couldn't have actual video games, and so you would have to play like miniaturized miniatures. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like bubble top hockey.
Bubble top hockey, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So I think that, like I said, that we hear a lot of stuff about dealing with, what's going on with bits, but what's going on with atoms is, I think, extremely exciting too, because it's just, I think these things are going to reinforce each other. We certainly need to learn how to push tiny atoms around to build better processors, and better processors, we get smarter systems.
So how far off? So one of the things Richard Feynman, he gave the legendary lecture, There's Always Room at the Bottom, where, and we've talked about versions of this on the program before, but I was always struck by the fact that before we get into compression algorithms, before we get into magnetic storage, before we get into symbolic stuff, he was speaking purely about really tiny things. And he figured, so many pixels to draw a letter, now replace pixels with stable atoms, and at a super micron level, how small could you replicate the actual text of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and on and on and on. Like that was all highly theoretical at the time that he said it, and I can't believe that a scant half century later, like, should there be enough of a motivation to do it? I wonder how close they could get to pulling off exactly or pretty close to what Feynman proposed.
Well, remember, he had a prize which he offered to the first person or group that could create like a certain scale motor, and it actually got won pretty quickly because they just used watchmaker tools to do it.
Oh.
And he was a little bit disappointed that they just used watch tools and not some radical new thing. But he was like, "Hey, a prize is a prize." I think it gets into it's like anything. It's just the more complex the system at that scale, the more they fall apart. But every day when we drive around in our cars, we have accelerometers, our phones. If you look at an accelerometer inside of a phone, it's actually it's a wafer inside of a microprocessor. It's extremely small, and this is tail in its tail position. So there are machines and there are moving parts inside of our phone. We don't even think about as moving parts because they're embedded in microprocessors. So we have made a lot of progress in some of those areas, but I think it's the really complex ones, and I also think it takes a certain kind of thinking.
Yeah.
So where do you think the AI side of this helps advance it?
Well, one of it is we've talked about before about how you can use AI systems to run a ton of simulations, right? If you want to build a robot that's going to be able to like navigate a factory or a self-driving car, if you want to figure out like, can I move, a beryllium, atom across this surface, and I have a 0.3% chance if there's an electrostatic discharge, I'm making this up, of it, deviating, can I run a bunch of calculations to figure out how to get it through there? So running the calculations from that, materials, one of my clients works in the semiconductor space, and we're trying to use ML to help improve materials discovery. And you might find that like, oh, if we do this little coding or this. So it's just in every area it can improve. But even on a basic fundamental thing, one of the things I try to encourage laboratories to do is take a step back and figure out how you can automate. Like take a step back and ask yourself, you have all these buckets full of data. Is your bottleneck some intern processing it? Is there some sort of area where you're doing a classification task that's giving you sort of wonky data that you could improve upon by taking a little bit of effort? And so sometimes it's just real low level improving the overall capability of, information processing.
So I got a question. When it comes to automating any kind of process, I worry a lot about creating a system that's too rigid. And as my needs change, suddenly the automation no longer seems like a good idea. Is that like for example, we both know that the flaws in our Weird Things episode publishing stuff are the humans involved, but outside of that, there are rigid structures that should something change, now it's not a quick fix to work around it. How would one future proof for that kind of stuff when you design an automated system?
So, for example, like the Weird Things thing is a great example of how I used a solution to solve a problem, but the solution I used is so what I did was we wanted to do a thing to streamline the way we uploaded our podcast, create our episode art, our notes, and all this sort of stuff. So I built a server that does that. Like you just upload the file, creates the title, does this sort of stuff. Brian still has to click submit. We still have to click publish. It works pretty well. Although, like, yeah, the other point is like the thing is I just built a server for doing that. Were I to do that over again, and I probably will, I would go use an automation platform where if Brian says, hey, can I get an email? Can you notify me when this thing happens? Then I would just go in and just add a new node and say, do this. And so I'd say that ideally with automation is it's one step to say, yes, it's great, it's automated. The other thing to think of like, okay, if I have to revisit this and keep tweaking this, is that going to be a pain? Am I going to need to pull out a code editor and start writing Python to fix this problem? Or can I just click a drop-down window and solve it? And so I think the idea is you think in terms of friction, what is going to provide the least amount of friction to solve the problem?
Have we gotten any closer? We talk a lot about productivity on the After Things program, but this is, I think, a Weird Things topic. One of the things that had come up is we dissected our workflows of how we keep notes, how we keep tasks on our radar and so on. And at some point I mentioned that I write myself a lot of emails because I know future Brian is going to sit down and go through his emails, right? And at some point I wondered, are we any closer to like the email OS or the email UI where last week you introduced me to make.com and its ability to build systems. Could I say, start this task, when it's done, send this summary to Brian by email. Brian will email you back with directions from there, or will authorize blank, blank, blank. Is that tech pretty plug and play yet?
Yeah, either that or an n8n.io, which is another automation. Yeah, like n8n has a thing like wait for follow-up response email. Like you can absolutely do that. It's just you literally have to sort of think in a systems level thing. So you could have a thing where it could send you a system. A simple way to do it, I mean simple, but relatively, would be in make.com is it sends you an email and then it creates an entry in a spreadsheet, right? And then you respond and it might look for scrape or whatever out of the subject line, ticket number 1Y9992. And it says, oh, ticket 1992, Brian's responding to this. Let me handle this. So several ways to do it. But yes, you can create an agentic email system very easily right now without having to code. You just have to do a little Google credential stance.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well then, man, I'm getting.
By the way, I'm kind of like as like a side project. I'm slowly as a way of learning a lot of these systems, trying to build something that is similar, where I can have the Orange Theory template of the day that gets uploaded by a person on Reddit, sent to me at some point during the night, and then I can send back to that email the card of what I did at Orange Theory, because they produce like a data rich card that you could theoretically share on social and stuff like that. But with the models as they are now, I could have an ongoing personal trainer that not only tells me what I am doing for that day before I leave the house, but also then reviews my results and tells me, how I can go from there. So I think that there's a lot that you can do, and I'm kind of working on the side to build that, which is fun. It's fun to screw around with it. To be totally honest, the biggest learning curve for anybody who is kind of scared, who listens to all the cool stuff that Andrew talks about, but has no idea how to go from 0 to 1, it's pretty much as easy as just signing up for an API. Like just go to OpenAI API, put your credit card on file, and if you're just dinking and dunking around like I am, like, and you don't really have a sense of what's going on, you're going to be able to play with some really, really cool tech. I essentially did this entire make.com build. I tried not to bother Andrew with it. I tried to figure out as much of it by myself. And by figure it out by myself, I mean, I just talked to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT talked me through the entire process. Now I hit a wall at a certain point in terms of replicatable results, but I think that there's a lot, that kind of stuff is really, really fun. And the more you get into it, the more you realize, like, oh, once I get this going, I can build onto it. I can make it richer. I can make it better.
Yeah, I use a platform now, N8N, which I can get in later on if we want. But the bottom line is like make.com, and if you're using, not using for personal workflow stuff, the stuff it's great. Yes, sometimes it might take a few hours going through tutorials and stuff to learn the stuff, but in the long run, your power. And how easy is it? I'm a former, circus magician. So, listen, and now you got ChatGPT to help you out. It just literally comes down to how stubborn you are and how much you just want to try to do it.
It is still really remarkable that the whole planet is learning how to use a thing. And the way they're learning how to use a thing is by asking the thing, how should I use you? Got any ideas?
Yeah, it is funny that like I'm envious of everybody because why I had to figure out how to use GPT-3 and work at OpenAI and all this stuff. I didn't have ChatGPT to do this, but I did have a Slack channel with the people who made it, which is kind of the same thing. And so, hey,
Analog ChatGPT, yeah.
yeah, what is this? What is this thing? We had one of the great things with OpenAI is they have a thing called Explain It Like I'm Five, a channel dedicated to that, and it can be anonymous. So you can ask the dumbest questions in there. And I would say if somebody went back to an analytics thing and said, compared the time frame of when the dumbest questions were asked and when I was hired, there might be an overlap. Not saying anything beyond that, but that's the beauty of these things. It's just, can take time to do it, but man, it's worth it. Man, it's really worth it. I'm a big fan of like just you start to think of these things, you start to do, people go, oh, what happens with computers replace programmers? Well, we start using programs to do all sorts of crazy stuff. Like I'm writing all kind, like we have an email digest that comes to us before a show, not a thing that we send out to people, but literally show notes. It's just an AI is out there collecting this stuff, and that would seem kind of like sci-fi-ish 20 years ago. Like, what if obviously they were like news filter stuff, but like, what if I have an AI that looks at our past stories and our present stories in the news and suggests new ones? And well, you can do that. So go ahead.
I was going to ask if that's one example of a tool that does exactly what we were talking about. I was wondering if you stumbled across any other new novel uses. I continue to maintain that it's interesting. So ChatGPT has 4.5 out, and for the purposes that I most often find myself using ChatGPT, the killer app for ChatGPT for me, to a 4.5, a bit too smart for my tastes. Because what I dig the most is it providing an outside perspective. When I post a YouTube video, I know what's in it. I know what the emotional beats are. I know what's good about it. What I can't possibly know is what combination of words will be the most attractive to the cloud of humans who will eventually come see it. And so I've been using 4.0 to give me a bunch of clickable titles, and I've been pretty happy with my process, as we talked about, is pitch me 10 and now rate your own selections, and let's talk about it. And then that way I'm able to launch with a title and 2 or 3 backups. But with 4.5, it got, I don't know, it was almost like I watched it get a little bit too in its head. I got answers that seemed literally too human. It was more like asking a team member, and I'm like, no, I need lowest common denominator fast thinking.
So, well, that brings us to GPT 4.5, which launched this week. And on the heels of Sonnet 3.7 and Grok 3. And in the case of Grok 3 and GPT 4.5, these are models trained with much more compute than their predecessors. They've used a lot more compute. GPT 4.5 is a very big model, so big the pricing for it's insane to be able to use it. And it's one of these things, we're entered in this space where you train a model a lot more compute, and you look at it and you go like, and we saw this with GPT 3.5 to GPT 4. People kind of forget was 3.5 got so good when you're trying to find examples of differences between 3.5 and 4. It was hard because 3.5's capabilities increased a lot through just better training, post-training, et cetera. Now we're seeing this with GPT 4.5. You go like, well, the scores are a bit better, but it doesn't feel like it's, how is it 10x better or so much better? And it's like, well, again, that gets into like a hard metric to evaluate. But when you start to look at the quality of responses, they talk about, like, you get into vibes, which is not the most scientific sort of thing, but you go, oh, wow, this feels like it really understood the question and gave me a great, really detailed answer. And, it's hard because it's not like there's just a single IQ test that tells you how brilliant these things are. I've been using it, to your point, Brian, like, yeah, I've been using it for memory palace stuff. And I'm like, my God, the quality of the answer is just much better than anything I've been getting before. But, a lot of times it feels like overkill. And I do think that we're at a point where we'll be able to take models that are like Grok 3, 4.5, Sonnet, and whatever, and improve them slightly, and they'll be good for a decade, by getting smaller. And we'll be using reasoning models for much more complex tasks.
Yeah. Did you guys try did you guys get the Grok voice?
No, how was that?
Plasticky. Also very weird that on the flavors of Grok's AI voices was plastic sex doll. That was an odd thing to see. And so
That's what it's called?
Might as well. It's a giant heart, and it
wait a
says
second. Okay,
it's
so
labeled
what's actually
sexy.
called that? Okay.
It's there's a heart. It's labeled sexy, and it says 18 plus. You tell me what that voice is for.
Okay.
I mean, it's obviously for adult conversations, right?
Yes. Yes.
Which, I mean, know your audience. Shout out to Grok for giving the people what they want, even if it's not necessarily something that would be brand safe. But before we got to that, you said that it was plasticky, so it did not feel rich or real.
Yeah, its smile is a little bit too brittle, and it doesn't blink. Its smile doesn't reach its eyes, and boy, is it trying hard to smile. And boy, did I got a sense of uncanny valley that I did not get upon the launch of advanced voice mode.
Outside of metaphor, can you give me an example?
I don't know. We can talk to it. I
don't know. I mean,
I
was just curious your experience if you remembered what you asked it.
I mean, it's just
compare it to advanced voice mode on ChatGPT.
Okay, so advanced voice mode does it relies on some fairly nuanced verbal takes to buy itself time. You know, like a suggestion of a sigh or a little bit of a vocal fill moment. That is not ironed out. Now, having said that, they're compensating, and I think it's a right move. They're compensating with novelty. You know, for example, they've got default storyteller, romantic meditation, conspiracy, not a therapist, not a doctor, unhinged, sexy, motivation. Oh, they have 18 plus motivation and 18 plus argumentative. This is oftentimes in various storytelling arts. When you have low fidelity, like in the early days of video games, and you want to manufacture a real emotion, usually shock and fear is one, or written humor or whatever. But it took decades before a video game was able to make me cry. And so right now they're doing like low fidelity technological arts. We're seeing a bunch of
So you're
novel
saying
stuff.
just by pre-selecting the experience and saying like you don't have one thing here.
Oh my
is,
God,
like,
it was listening to me.
Yeah, Brian, I'm right here, you sneaky bastard. Caught me creeping on your rant, huh? Gotta say, you're spot on about that novelty shit, compensating for the rough edges. So, what's your favorite flavor of this voice mode circus? Unhinged, keeping you hooked, or you?
All right, and then it's constantly telling me to subscribe to its newsletter. It's it's exhausting, is what it is. That's what it is. It's exhausting. Just like a person who can't
because it keeps prompting you for a thing. Like
Yes.
it is just desperate to keep the conversation going.
Yes. That is my impression. Now, keep in mind, this is all of 24 hours, but
Yeah. But the people need to
Interesting.
know. The people need to know. That's it sounded like the voice was, I mean, I don't know. I guess like the baseline for how the voices sound is so good now that it's like it's not even like you can ding it for sounding more or less human. It's like they all sound pretty human.
Yeah, one of the things it gets into is the difference is that the advanced voice mode model is what's called the speech to speech, and that it is one model that hears your voice and the AI figures out how to respond. Where the other systems you're seeing, what they do is they take your voice, they then do a transcript. The transcript goes to the AI, and then the AI generates a thing, and that goes to a voice to a speech generator model, right? And that was the problem they had with advanced voice mode early on, was because it was an all one model. It could tell your volume, your accent, all of these things, and early users even reported it mimicking their voice. Which, maybe like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I don't need to hear that. And so I'd say that to get to the real nuance, you're gonna have to get to models that are way more sophisticated. I think like advanced voice mode, but we'll see. Yeah, that sounded very much like a model that was just taking the text and going to a speech model and doing.
And you can
responding.
literally see it. You see the text showing up, and then you hear the voice reading you the text, which also kind of takes away the illusion. It's like there are times I want you to show me your work on your, chain of thought and so on, but I don't want to see. I don't want to know that there's a second entity being the actor who's reading the script that is showing up in front of me. Like that's I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to be too harsh. Like I'm judging the flavor of miracle soup. I mean, it's still a freaking miracle, but
Yeah.
Miracle soup. Available half price before 5.
too salty.
These things continuously get more and more incredible. So we shall see. So I think that we may have a Starship launch coming up soon.
Ooh, is this now we have a long-standing prediction bet about whether or not I believe I said that the next time that the Starship launches and they try to land it, it's going to land perfectly, both stages on the very first try. But
Yeah, so the launch is scheduled for Monday,
okay,
and which side of the bet are we on?
I am on the. It's going to.
Optimistic side.
Yeah, it's going to surprise everyone that he's going to nail it first go.
Okay. Um,
What are the
That's-
stakes? What are the stakes?
Well, I don't remember. I mean, this is a past tense bet. If you want us to make up a new one right now, we can.
No, I'm like, what do you think? Pie? Are we doing pie to the face?
Well, I mean, so far we have a 0 out of 0 track record of following through on that. But sure, yeah. Oh, I'll do a pie in the face.
all right. Listen, I think I'm interested in getting in on this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the last time, I don't know if the last time there was an agent on the inside that we could just send a pie to that lives in Andrew's house that could just hit him with a pie.
I tell you, there is a person here who'd be very happy to pie me. So,
I know. I think. Look, here it goes. We're locking it in for Monday. I am going to be the purchaser of the pie.
Okay.
Either way.
Well, first of all, we should know whether or not they're going to attempt to land both stages.
All right.
Because
if they are attempting to land both stages,
yes.
that is the bet. If they do land the stages after attempt, then Andrew takes a pie to the face. If they are unsuccessful in landing both stages, then Brian will take a pie to the face, and I will pie Brian myself.
Uh-oh. We'll know what kind of episode we're in for when suddenly it's like, all right, we're trying out the mobile studio rig outdoors, people. Here we go. The Weird
Exactly.
Things
Here we go.
podcast.
We're laying down a tarp.
it just sounds horrible when we talk about like I'll put a pie in his face.
All right. Just save it for unhinged mode.
Yeah.
So you're the one
Save
who
it for
said it.
18 plus unhinged mode. And
You're the one who said it. So I would say going back to, so one of the big things was that between Grok 3 and GPT 4.5, which were using way more compute than like the predecessor models to do, in some of the evals, you look at the evals, they don't like blow things out of the water. There are improvements there. In some ways, some cases regressions, and people are like, have we reached the limit of
The
what we
wall.
can do?
The wall, the
Yeah.
famed wall that people were saying, which was something that we had kind of poo-pooed a little bit in our previous conversations about AI development, because you were smashing evals in the 6 months since that was the conversation. But that had been a rumor that internally more compute did not necessarily equal the kind of gains that it had in 3 to 4.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple of things that come into play. There's the argument being made that transformer technology as is, the current state can only sort of yield certain kinds of results, that you can only get certain kinds of results from the data that we have. There's also the argument that you have to kind of like be pushing the kind of data you're trying to train on. And there are so many dials that can be turned that it's hesitant to sort of see that, but also that we knew the wall really wasn't there, because we found out too that these models, by the way, they're called, they're base models. They're basically a base model where you just say, hey, and 4.5 is not really a frontier model. 4.5 is an improvement on 4 and just sort of like throwing more compute. So it's not like a whole new paradigm in that. But with the base models, we see that they can, you give them a question, it gives you its best answer. And the fact that you're seeing these models give you reasoning model-like answers in some cases. Because if you look at those evaluations, we have base models, and then we have reasoning models, which then take the question, break it down, go back to it, address it, and whatever. And that's where O3 is still seems to be on top for that, for being able to do those kinds of, responses. And that's a reasoning model. And we're seeing other reasoning models like, R1, a very good. Sonnet with thinking is very good. Grok 3 with thinking mode is just, these things are all really great when you give them that ability to do that. So how we define the wall, if we want to say there's a wall for like single pass models, there might be diminishing returns, but not when we let them work in a system.
Yeah, and that's what the OpenAI roadmap that was discussed by Sam Altman a few weeks ago is that this would probably be the last single use model or base model that wouldn't be a blending of a bunch of different models for which it would decide what it was going to do from the top, right? Just built all in one.
Yeah, because you're finding out too that you ask a query, and I don't know which model. Work on these things. You ask like, which model should I use for this? I have to sit there and think like, oh, this is going to be a single response. I need that. Like, no, I need a little more recent response to check itself. I'll use this. But ideally, really, you're just going to have a system that you ask and it gives you the best answer.
I mean, weirdly, kind of like humans. Some
Yeah.
systems will be endowed with inherently faster running processors, but others will evolve to have such personalities that you don't really care what's under the hood.
Yeah, I've said that, one of the ways to think about automation is often just like look at an org chart, and figure out like, okay, how is an org, how does this function? How are we, what does this head of this department do? What do these people do?
Well,
Yeah.
here's something you can do, dear listener. Patreon.com/weird thing is where you need to go if you want to support this show. We always love when there are people that take their hard-earned coin and toss it at us for coming at you each and every week and talking about technology, science, and the news of the weird. Look, pay us money or else she'll go hungry.
Uh-oh.
There's a baby on screen now. That's for video viewers only. Are you gonna go hungry if people don't subscribe on Patreon? Yes, I will.
Oh my
Those
God,
were her
baby's first words.
Her first words were a Patreon plug.
It's already ready for LinkedIn, and my child asked me. That whole genre of my child said this to me of like, oh, the wisdom of the babes. Like people just manufacture that stuff now.
I know.
Like
It's so stupid.
yeah, that was like somebody had one and was like, my kid said something and cried and says, why are you thinking what are you doing, mom? It's like, or dad, like, oh, I'm just thinking how I'm gonna write this into a LinkedIn post now.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, that weird sort of desire to create some sort of pseudo authenticity is a very
it's really debasing, and it's really beneath artists and creatives. I'm glad that we don't engage in that. By the way, Bella looks fantastic, super cute, just the best. I really hope that we're able to keep doing this podcast.
Exactly. Also,
Yeah.
Brian, I got my email for Callie's cards, and so I'm glad that those are in production.
Oh, that's right. Well, hopefully he spelled the website right. CALLIESCARDS.com.
But you're right. Exploiting your children for your own financial gain is just
Super
disgusting.
messed up.
Just stop me,
Super
Kurt. Revolting.
super messed up.
I look forward to having children that I can, make use of in this manner too. So
Right? You're an emotional hedge, an emotional weak leverage that I can keep with the audience. Right? You'll learn to do this yourself.
Well, I think that's kind of the weird news this week. You guys want to do picks?
Yeah, I just started last week I talked about the first 15 lives of Harry August, and I enjoyed that very, very much. It was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. And now I'm back to proper nonfiction. So I'm reading Reset by Dan Heath. It's great. It's great. It's about what happens when you have a system. We're talking about systems, and it's time to shake things up and make some changes. And it's a short 4.5 hour audiobook, but it just gives you nothing but meat. And it says, for example, take a tour of the entire production pipeline from stem to stern, which is, literally something I've been doing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, whatever it is. And the example he gives is there's a administrator or a school teacher or whatever who was asked to rate her schools, give them letter grades for everything from approachability to exciting students to giving opportunities to expand and quality of education or whatever. And then she audited one child's day at school. And on the second hour of 2-hour algebra, which at an administrative level made a lot of sense and checked a lot of boxes, she heard the bell ring and got excited and accidentally almost stood up, not realizing that it wasn't her bell. And she visibly was disappointed. And then she was asked to revisit the letter grade she had given on her own school now that she had spent one whole day as a student. And the answers, unsurprisingly, were very different. And there's no substitute for just laying your own eyes on the data, taking in the raw feed and seeing the shape of things, not as you can spin them, but as they actually are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the bitter pill, the thing to sort of step back and say, what am I doing wrong? You know,
Yeah.
what am I not seeing? And small doses, small doses.
My pick is Severance. It's so good. So good. I've not seen last night's episode.
Oh wait, I haven't
But
either.
I'm excited. Oh, I'm excited.
Although I did see a spoiler in a headline. Yeah, I don't know if it's
Well,
a
I'm
spoiler.
gonna hang up. Bye.
All right, bye.
My pick is the Mickey Mouse cartoons, the new ones, well, from the last decade or so, by Paul Rudish on Disney Plus. They're really fun, really, really well done.
Paul
I think-
Rudish. Again, like what age demographic are they targeted at?
Well, Brian,
Oh,
good question.
I'm like, or
Um,
sorry, should I not ask? Like the only Mickey Mouse new content that I could think of is like the Mickey Mouse Club from the late aughts, early teens, which I don't think
So-
is what you're talking about, because you would have been singing
No,
"Hot Dog, Hot
cartoons.
Dog, Hot Diggity Dog."
Well, there is a funny hot dog episode too. So Paul Rudish did Powerpuff Girls.
Oh,
Worked
right
that,
on.
Worked on a lot of different. He's a seasoned animator who worked on other stuff, really well respected. And they brought him in and said, "Hey, do you want to take over Mickey Mouse?" And he did a redesign of Mickey Mouse, and I have found them just to be like just delightful. Like they're really. You ask me what you're like. I don't know. I'm watching them, Brian. I'm enjoying them. I'm sure kids would like them too.
Well, I'll give them a try. Hey, did we talk about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series on Disney Plus?
No, not yet.
Oh, it's great. Have you watched it?
Yeah.
I only watched the first 2 episodes, but I'm so very here for the art style, the color palette, and my favorite part was the gentle riffing on, we've seen a few Spider-Man stories, and sometimes we're bored of hearing how he got his powers, and other times we're well, actually, you know what? That's it. That we're just bored of hearing how he got his powers. But now in the multiverse and everything, I really enjoyed the game they were playing in the first 5 minutes of like, okay, where are we in the timeline? Does he have his powers? Does he not? And the fake out of like, oh, I missed a train. I guess I'll opens backpack, eat a sandwich, and it's like, oh, look at this guy. It's definitely, oh, does he know who Doctor Strange is? Some kind of wizard, so he doesn't. And then a symbiote spider that doesn't die. And I don't know. I like hearing a band do a cover of a song I know.
Yeah, I thought artistically it was very, very cool. I would say that thematically, some things just hit me over the head in a way that I thought was done. I thought in a more clever, nuanced way with X-Men '97. So it was sort of like, oh, okay, you're gonna go about this way. All right, it's cool. It feels like a lecture. That's fine. Where like X-Men '97 was just so cool. So,
You know what? I do need to watch X-Men '97. In fact, I'm gonna write a note.
right.
I'm gonna send an email. It's that good?
I mean, I think that if you dig if you're into kind of the X-Men cartoon of the '90s, and it's very much the Top Gun Maverick. Imagine this was a much better predecessor than a way. It's not the dig knock on the cartoon of the '90s. They did cool themes and plots and stuff, but it's just literally like, let's take this and just build on this and just sort of like really I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm not a cartoon guy, but I really liked it.
I didn't know that you're not a cartoon guy. Oh, you know what? You'll approve of this. Here, I'm gonna text you. I don't think I'll get in trouble for this, but my eldest Penelope is starting to take some figure drawing classes at university. All part of her degree. She wants to be a skilled fantasy novel writer. And here, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to send this over to you, Andrew. She was told to pick a movie, or she was assigned a movie, I guess, and she had to do a character study. And here's her art from the movie she had to do to give impressions of.
Very cool.
Yeah, she took scenes from Blade Runner, and it's really a testament to the fact, to the composition of all those shots, that it's like not only there's very little in these shots that are indicative of the substance of what's happening, but the composition of them, you instantly can tell, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So what was the assignment?
Here, let me see what I'll read her words on this. She said it was, there we go. The studies for Blade Runner. Where did she say that? She goes, I have to watch another movie for class. This time I have to grab screenshots from a movie of my choice to turn it into a series of black and white drawings. I want to finally watch the director's cut of Blade Runner. So she had the freedom to pick whatever movie she wanted. And so she went with that and got to see the director's cut and just sort of like right there, that one. And so I guess there's kind of multiple filters. There's, the source material as seen through Ridley Scott's eyes. Then we have the filter of the director's cut. Then we have the filter of my daughter going through and just stopping at moments and be like, yeah, that one. And then doing studies on it. It's fascinating. I love that.
These are great. That's great. That's absolutely great. Great. Quite the artistic family you have there, Brian.
I know, for good or for ill. And the weirdest part, and we've talked about this in other Weird Things episodes, but I can't think of a core fundamental to humanity that isn't rapidly being taken over by, or being handled by artificial means. And as a result, it is strange advice for somebody who didn't think you'd ever say these words, but the safest bet is to become a very skilled communicator and a bit of a poet, so that as more resources and abundance rains down upon us, we can all make money by impressing each other. We have some new fans here in the chat. I've long time, when I put on my futurist hat, I've been thinking in terms of eventually people who want to actually go out and risk death and have a frontier lifestyle will do so among the stars, and everyone else who chooses to live here on Earth, will be aware that we all live in a petri dish, a very, very nice petri dish. And pretty much the rest of us, since we won't have to worry as much as we have in the past about where we get our calories, our nutrition, whether, how we handle disease and all that stuff. Instead, we will compete for status in a grand and secret game of poetry here on planet Earth. And so weirdly, I think I'm glad that I told my 3 daughters to be good artists. I don't know. It's a weird
Teach
thing.
them to invest, Brian, too. Teach them to invest.
Yes. Okay. That's all part of it as well.
Yes. Yeah. I do think understanding what other people want, teach them how to network and how to invest. So
yes.
You can be a great artist sitting in your loft by yourself.
Yeah, sorry. I should. You'll notice I said to be great communicators, which is all part of it.
Good, fair point. Yes, good call. Good call.
You got to close. I don't know. Capital is for closers.
Yeah. We talk about that too on after things too.
Yeah.
Brian, it's been after. But it's not. It's weird. It's been weird. Sorry. It's been weird.
Perfect. Lock it. Cut. Print. Got it.
Done and done.
Okay. I actually have company coming in 20 minutes. Can we do a short run and gun for after?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Here we go. Ready in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to After Things. I'm Mayne, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello.
Brian, we've been talking about automation. Where are you in your automation journey?
You know what? I got pulled away into a lot of. You know what? I skipped actually learning to do automation and went straight to proselytizing. The most I was able to get my hands on Make.com was when I was telling a friend about the demo you'd given me and started to try to do it on my phone, on my mobile phone. And I realized, yeah, this is probably not best to execute on a mobile device. It probably needs a mouse at some point.
Yeah, that'll be a little tricky there.
Now,
So yeah,
the one we had talked about with Make.com, I really dug how intuitive it is, but it sounds like you got a new favorite method platform.
Yeah, so I've been using N8N and N8N.io, the letter N, number 8, letter N.io. I went to a meetup yesterday for them, put on by kind of their volunteer ambassadors in Santa Clara. And what's cool about this is that you can do a bit more. It's got like built-in agent tools. So if you want to create an agent to be able to process stuff and act like, like answer questions, do that, it's built into it. You can sit there and rewrite code. And what's cool is they have a community edition. So if you just want to host it yourself, you can do that, which is pretty awesome. So I now literally have N8N open in front of me. I swear I have been working on it throughout the show, trying to solve an automation. Very, very cool. Big fan of it.
Well, so how is it different from what we saw with Make.com?
I would say that it's a little more technical, and like Make has thousands and thousands of APIs you just plug in. With N8N, you might have to just go get your API keys and URLs for some of the stuff. I would say that Make.com is just a great intro to it to sort of play around with it. If you go, oh, I like this, but I want to customize stuff more, or I really need to lower the cost of this, then I would try N8N.
What traditionally is the path to getting an API? Like I've always, I mean, I'm familiar with the idea. It's basically an outward-facing tool set to an internal engine, but it's always been in that mushy. Programmers know this, but now the role of programmer via natural language is increasingly being thrust upon me, and so I'm like, oh, I guess I am a programmer now, because I can talk and give instructions. How do I get an API key?
So often what it is you go in and you look for, whatever platform you're using. So for instance, I've been using 11 Labs, right? Which is a way I've cloned my voice there, right? Because I'd like to be able to do, record stuff. And then if I get to a point in the middle of editing and I have large segments that I need to re-edit or whatever, instead of pulling out my microphone, I want to be able to do that again. So you can go to 11 Labs, train something. You can just type in 11 Labs API, or you go look for things as API key. Sometimes they can be a little harder to find. I want to play something for you here, by the way.
Okay.
Let me go to the studio. Let's go grab my voice. All right. A second.
No worries.
All right, I'm going to share a screen here, Brian, and hopefully we'll hear the audio.
Okay.
Speaking in communication.
Wow.
Listening is as important as. Hello, my name is Andrew Mayne. I'm doing a podcast with Brian Brushwood.
Wow, that's good. That's way better than I thought.
Yeah. Try it, generate it again. It'll be a
Hello,
little different.
my name is Andrew Mayne. I'm doing a podcast with Brian Brushwood.
Wow, that's incredible. So
I took an hour of I trained that on an hour of my voice data, and probably want to train it on more, but that's pretty cool.
yeah. So when you train, that's 11 Labs, and so when when you're training, do you have to sit there and deliberately like read samples, or can you just scoop up a bunch of you talking? Oh, you're answering. Audio listeners, there's a reason for this pause. All right.
When you train, you just upload a lot of your own audio data.
That's pretty great. That's pretty amazing, man. That's incredible.
So I was going like that. You have to do a voice print identification too. They give you a statement to read, so they make sure that you are uploading your audio and not somebody else's. So I'm sitting there going like you can do like a 10-second sample or something, and it's kind of good, but to get it really good, they say like 3 hours. I'm like, where am I going to get that much material? And then I'm like, oh, I've done these live streams where I've talked by myself forever and ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll just download some of those. And so that's been, my, that's what I'm doing is I took an hour of content, so I could train down a couple more hours, but that was just.
When you train, you just upload a lot of your own audio data.
That's pretty amazing.
That you wouldn't think that was a robot. You'd think that was me.
No, 100%. And as a matter of fact, and we've talked about this kind of in our speculation segments before. It's like I fully expect that there's going to be kind of just a best practices of just randomly asking friends. Like, it's going to be weird at first and then it'll become normal, but like asking friends, remember that time where blank happened? And when the other person's like, yeah. And you're like, tell me about it. And then that awkward moment of like, I mean, not that you are a robot, but if you were, you would remember the most interesting
今で
thing
は日
about.
本語を話します。
Wait, what was that? Oh no, are
今
you
では日
speaking?
本語を話します。
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's incredible. That's crazy. What's happening now? What? Aha. Okay, here we go.
私は友人のブライアン・ブラッシュウッド氏と話しています。
I'm
That's
talking to my
incredible.
friend, Mr. Brian Rushwood.
Wow.
Didn't know I spoke Japanese, did you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and boy, this takes me back to, I remember, I don't know, 321 Contact or Enter magazine when I was 12 years old. A little article that began with Mosh Moshi, and it's like, hello. And it says, imagine you pick up the telephone and you're calling someone and it's answering in Japanese and it's your voice. And I'm like,
मैं
oh,
अपने मित्र मिस्टर ब्रायन ब्रशवुड से बात कर रहा हूँ.
like maybe someday. Guess what? I lived long enough to see it happen. That's freaking amazing.
Yeah. All right. Let's try one more. What kind of accent? Oh, let's do see if this works. Left to right language though, so that might be a problem. I'll just use the phonetic English.
What language is this?
Oh, see if you can tell.
أنا أتحدث إلى صديقي السيد براين برشوود.
Wow. Yeah.
So pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
We live in the future.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
It's moving pretty quick.
Let's do Irish.
So I got a
Tammy AG Kane le Moshera and Twassel Brian Brushwood.
so I got a after things kind of productivity moment story.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the so part of the reason for the setup on the studio that I've been doing, the new workflow and all that, is for fast turnaround, fast iteration, quantity of authentic stuff over high polish, because I'm selling stock in high polish. Now that high polish is available to the masses, I'm gonna bet that humans are going to value it less, and I'm buying stock in raw authenticity and magic unfakeable moments. There's a magician who had a cable television show in the aughts, and he figured out that, I could do a magic show, and it'd be real easy is if you just hired extras to act surprised. And the flaw in that thinking is literally everyone can tell whether or not somebody is acting surprised.
Hold up. Can we're not going to name names here.
I didn't.
I had to go, and I'm going to say, I had to go through the trouble of tricking people into thinking they're going on scavenger hunts and things like this to do this, because I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. But you say the flaw, that show was hugely successful.
I know.
Successful.
The flaw in my mind, right? That was also an era where I believe that humans, the less of humans get of something, the more they want it, and that was an age where an unprecedented level of polish came to cable television, where there used to be plenty of authenticity and not a lot of polish. Now we're entering an age of a lot of polish, and it's authenticity that's going to be the rare and precious thing. And so with that in mind, we're doing these scam sessions where I get magicians in, and late at night at a magic convention, oftentimes you get people just riffing on magic ideas, magicians trying to fool magicians and stuff, and we'll riff for 15 to 35 minutes, and then there'll usually be an excellent 3 to 7 minute chunk in there where there's genuine surprise, or for whatever reason I hadn't heard of this, or for whatever reason they hadn't heard of it. And we started riffing on the idea of the wizard trick, which I guess now that I named it, I'll talk in oblique codes. But the question became, why did this trick work in the 1960s, and what were the structural institutional things that you could rely upon when one person called another one on the phone, and what information inefficiencies could you take advantage of to, in a surprising way, communicate? And there's some clever asymmetries that happen for it. And then reducing it to those core aspects, it's like, okay, well, if you want to communicate a card, what is the smallest number of bits that you can do to do this? And we came up with a method. So ostensibly, what it was supposed to be is the magician who is the guest and the other magician went to the other room, and they demonstrated a better, improved version of that classic trick. That was fine. It didn't really land. But then we kind of riffed on it, and we came up with a highly weaponized version. And then I realized, oh, shoot, other magician is still in the other room and doesn't know that we just enhanced this. And I'm like, why don't you two tag out? Don't tell them why. And let's try this new superior version. And so tags out, other magician comes in, sits down, and it's like, hey, go ahead. I want you to pick any card in the deck. Picks it out. You're like, sure, that's the one you want? Okay. And at first, the card he picked with this new method would have been like challenging. But then he was like, no, I want this one. Turned out to be a very fortuitous thing. And so this magician, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm going to call other magician. Called other magician. He answers hello. And I just say, hey. And then there's dead silence for a bit. And the guy goes, you're thinking of the Ace of Hearts, aren't you? And the other magician was absolutely fried. It was just great. It was just great that we were able to capture. I had no idea what that magic moment was going to be, but I knew if we were rolling and riffing for 45 minutes, there would be something like that. And we ended up with a very, very clever refinement on the wizard trick. And if you know what I'm talking about, the key insight was that, hey, here's the thing, Andrew. Did you know that whenever two phones call each other, I guess we'll say iPhones for sure, it is absolutely guaranteed that both phones are perfectly synchronized on the number of seconds of the phone call. And if you were to call someone on speaker in front of them, you could, with the spectator hearing both sides of the conversation, they will be very amazed when you are able to communicate to the other party. I tried to speak in code, but I bet you're picking it up.
Yeah. No, I get you.
It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's also too that the fact that you have this magic device in your pocket up until the moment you introduce it opens up a lot of opportunity too.
Well, that's why you do it with their phone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
You just have them call the person. And
So I think that's great. I will tell you a thing too that I realized was, my biggest YouTube video ever a billion years ago was like, I had all these iPhone tricks, and they all were contingent upon using somebody else's phone because it was so important to me that I use their phone, because I'm thinking, well, if I use my phone, they'll be suspicious. Then I watched an entire genre of magic come out where people just used their own iPhone. And because an iPhone was just an iPhone to people, they were completely floored. And I overthought this so much.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
It was like, oh, it's a phone. They're not thinking that they have the same phone that I have. So if the phone does a thing, and especially stuff that doesn't look like apps, that's like secretly an app or whatever, was even more. And that was my like, oh man, I've wasted my life overthinking these things.
You and I share that. You and I share that little bit of a flaw of just assuming, well, everyone's going to figure out that insight that I just figured out. How do I build 2 steps ahead of that? And it's like, I'm sorry, sir, please come out of those clouds.
I do want to get into a little spoiler zone here. So did we talk about Rise of the Resistance and the little trick they did that was really brilliant? That was absolutely brilliant.
We talked about the ride last week, but I don't remember a specific trick that you pointed out.
Okay, so there's a point. Anybody doesn't want to spoil, please stop listening to now. And when you go in and you go watch the point where Ray's hologram appears before you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you know how they did it?
I just got in my mind as far as some kind of Pepper's ghost, I assumed.
So technically speaking, it's not Pepper's ghost. And first time through, I just didn't. There was a couple things that just my brain triggered. I just said, "Shut it down. Just enjoy the thing." And then second time through, I saw this again. I go, "Oh wow! I don't know how they're doing this because so Pepper's ghost is basically where you can basically project through a piece of glass onto a another room, and you basically think an object's in the room, but you're looking at a reflection on the glass. So what they're doing is they're doing a mirror effect. So you're looking up, you see this area up above you, and when I walk in, I'm like, well, that's going to be a mirror effect because it's above the height, the height of everybody, and the wall behind it matches the wall in front of it. And then Ray's hologram appears. I'm like, oh, like are they? Is that a projector doing that? And what that is actually, and I overthought it. Like, no, you have a mirror, but you can have a thin mirror, and you can put and like an OLED panel behind it. And so
Oh, got it. And you'll shine through. So picture, there are actually some hotels where, like, when the TV is
like
off,
the mirror gem,
it looks like
the mirror, yeah. So yeah, you can put a PTV behind a mirror, put it up close to it, and you get that. That was really clever. That was just a very clever way to do it. Was just put that there. But they did something else which really burned me because I look up and I'm looking at the plane at which Ray is on, and I can see the scene where the mirror should be, but Ray is like straight on the camera, but she's like at an angle. And so if you can imagine the plane that she's on, the plane does not match where the mirror seam is. If you know where the mirror is placed between the structure. And I remember watching that going like, no. And I walked away with that magician. Well, I know it's just this with ... And then I watched a behind the scenes video and they said, yeah, they put the TV behind the mirror. I'm like, okay, cool. That checks out. They put the mirror in the thing. And then what they did is they took the video of Ray talking to camera and they digitally tilted it. So the plane of the video
doesn't match.
And so if you're looking at trying to find a seam like I was, you're like, wait a second, this doesn't.
That's
and
brilliant.
I'm like, I know it's got to be a mirror. I know it's got to be this, but I was like, I did admit, I couldn't admit to my wife I was fooled.
By the way, best magic illusion I've ever seen at Disney, full stop, in the Magic Kingdom is when the mirror grows at the tea party at Beauty and the Beast. Have you seen this?
I don't think so.
Oh, here, we'll take just one moment to look at this clip. I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, this is seeing it in person kind of broke me. I had to go do it again. Let's see. Beauty and the Beast mirror grow. Yeah. Okay. Oh, let me see. Yeah. I guess this is it. And we'll see if it... Okay. I don't know how much of this... There we go.
Disney theme parks are well.
All right. Hush, hush, hush you. Hold on. Let me...
Incorporate a wide range of practical digital effects.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna turn this down. There's one. There we go. This is the effect. So there's a moment you need to walk through this mirror, and like all great magic, it is totally unexpected, and you're just there, doing along, and that mirror's there the entire time, and it's like, oh, BT Dubs, it's time for you to come inside this the magic mirror, and sure enough, right in front of your freaking face, the freaking mirror just grows, and you don't even notice it at first, and it's definitely a straight up mirror, and then just you walk through it. Isn't that great?
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, like oh, it's such a treat. It's and of course they explain. I don't even know if that's exposure. I guess not. I mean, they're not pretending to be a cartel of wizards.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I love it when I see a little touch that, I'm a guy that's designed magic effects that use mirrors and have mirror methods that have never been even put into print that are like really like cool stuff. And then when I see this little somebody there said, if we tilt the digital image, by a few degrees, it's really going to mess with people looking for the seam, which was me. And so I was like, well done, well done. So I love to be fooled, and that was delightful.
It's brilliant. Yeah. Everybody watch the mirror growing, and I guess you'll see the answer. But I remember seeing it twice, and I'm like, yeah, no, or no, I guess the second time I got it, but there tends to be a few methods when mirrors are involved, and yeah, I guess that's all I'll say.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great. Anyway, I think my guests just arrived, Andrew.
All right, later. It's been after.
Oh, wait. Okay. All right. Bye. Okay. All right. I'm shutting down the streams, guys. Good to see you. Bye. Okay. And